Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rinkus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you. Everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
And whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Even better, all of our guests are local small business owners who you can actually talk to and work with. You can learn more about today's guest and connect with hundreds of other health and wellness professionals through our informative and easy-to-use directory at motherhoodalliance.com.
Before we get started, keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for personal healthcare advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes based on the podcast content.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Are you ready to help your family thrive? Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Andrea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Dr. Rachel Tippins, the owner of Flow Family Chiropractic in Kaukauna, Wisconsin. Dr. Rachel was introduced to the chiropractic field when she was a teenager, and she quickly fell in love with the concept of the body healing itself and a career that could support it to do just that. Fast forward to today, and Dr. Rachel now owns a laughter-filled and kid-friendly practice that specializes in pediatric and perinatal care. She says that her biggest passion is to empower pregnant moms through their perinatal journey, as well as supporting families in the postpartum transition and seeing them flourish when their bodies are functioning optimally. In our first 2 episodes together, our conversations answer some of your most common questions for chiropractors as we discuss Chiropractic 101, myths, facts, and everything in between in episode 1, and aligning your mind and body, the anti-stress power of chiropractic care in episode 2. In our 3rd and 4th episodes together, we dive into the more specific topics of like how chiropractic can help your kids thrive and how chiropractic can be a huge supporter for women before, during, and after pregnancy. With that said, even if you don't have kids or are not in the childbearing years, we bet you know someone who is. So please share these episodes with them. Dr. Rachel is such a fun person, and she brings so much of her natural joy, energy, and passion to these episodes. Let's dive into today's conversation. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 2 with Rachel. We're excited to have you back, Rachel.
I'm excited to be back.
Today we're going to be talking about stress and how it relates to chiropractic care. I know you mentioned stress in episode 1, so we wanted to have an entire episode dedicated to this.
Yeah.
So I think my obvious first question is, everybody's stressed out.
Yep.
So how does it affect the nervous system, and what does it have to do with chiropractic?
Okay. Yep. That's a great one. And you're 100% right. I mean, stress is more rampant in our society these days than ever before. And we're going to dive deep into like different forms of stress. But stress basically is like anything that creates a like protection response within our body. So we can have good stress and we can have bad stress, and too much good stress can be a bad stress. And there's a whole different, that it all kind of goes in different routes. But when we encounter different stimuli that create this like stress response within our body, it ends up stimulating and activating what's called our sympathetic nervous system. And our sympathetic nervous system is our body's protection response. That's our body's like go, 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 go mode. That's our like fight or flight state, as like what we learned it as like 8th grade biology. Offsetting from that. So we have 2 different like sides of our nervous system and 2 different ways that our nervous system is functioning. The opposite of that is our parasympathetic nervous system. And that's our body's like calming, restorative mode. That's our like safety response. And that's our body's like response that enhances like immune function and digestion and proper hormone control and all that kind of stuff. So when we encounter all these different things that are activating this fight or flight response and that are activating the sympathetic nervous system, it creates like more of this heightened like response in our body. And initially, like that's an important thing. Like we need to have that. That's like back in caveman days, if you were being chased by a tiger or a lion, like you need to be able to figure out like, how do I get away from this? How do I protect myself? But when that happens for prolonged periods of time and that fight or flight response is activated for long periods of time, it ends up causing a lot more like disruption and dysfunction within our bodies. So chiropractic chiropractic comes into play by working on balancing the two sides of our nervous system and really activating more of this parasympathetic nervous system to help cut down this fight or flight response in the sympathetic state.
Yeah. And we talked about, and you just said, like, there's different types of stress, because a lot of people think, oh, like I'm stressed out at work or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
That's true. But there's probably a lot more different kinds of stress than just that.
Yeah. Yep. So in my office, we talk about like 4 main like categories of stress. So we talk about physical stress, chemical stress, mental and emotional stress, and then technological stress, because it's the 21st century.
Yeah.
So when we talk about physical stress, we kind of talk about macro traumas and micro traumas. So macro traumas are the big things like the snowboarding accident and the football injury and the car accident. And like, boom, in that moment, it was a big physical impact. Birth, another good one. Talk about that one a lot.
Yeah.
Then we've got the micro traumas, which are the little things that repetitively, like over time, they build up one day at a time. Maybe not that big of a deal, but when it happens over and over again, it takes a big toll. So we were talking about snowboarding a little bit before, that rotational movement, like, okay, maybe like for one day, not a big deal, or like a couple runs. But when you do that, like repetitively and weekend to weekend over and over again, it builds up a lot. So, yep.
Yeah. So before we move on to the other types of stress, I actually do have a question related to that, which is what we were talking about ahead of time.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on like impact sports as a chiropractor, or snowboarding or wakeboarding, just because your spine is twisted and then you're also adding impact to it? So what are your thoughts on sports in general, like those harder ones on the body?
Yep. I kind of go back and forth on different things like that. So because I am such a firm believer that our bodies are like wonderful, capable beings, and we can do hard things, and we should be able to do hard things. We just then have to take care of our bodies while we're doing hard things. So you have to make sure that you have the proper strength and that you have the proper stability to do these things, and that you're taking proper like recovery and rehab care of your body when those things happen. However, there are certain things, obviously, like, I mean, we all know about football and like brain injuries and stuff like that. Like, that's a tough one. When my kid one day wants to play football, like that's going to be a hard one. And you, from a chiropractor perspective, you just get adjusted all the time, adjustments every single day. And a lot of like PT, red light therapy, all the big things to really help with recovery process and injury prevention, that kind of stuff. But honestly, more so from a chiropractor perspective, some of the things that I see kids in my office have a really hard time with, gymnastics is one of like the biggest ones.
Really? Like overextension and stuff like
100%. And I mean, like, how many of us don't have like proper core stability?
Yeah.
And then you go like overextend your spine and you're jamming your spine like over and over and over again. And kids' sports practices these days are crazy. Like 3-hour practices, like 6 to 9 p.m., like 4 to 5 nights a week. And I mean, I see that in like 10 and 12 and like 14-year-olds. Like, it's not even just like varsity practices, which is kind of crazy to me. I didn't realize that was that intense these days. But it's just that repetitive, like overextension, that repetitive rotation patterns, things like that put so much pressure and stress on our bodies. And especially then when kids sit in a classroom and they're hunched over and they're slumped down, so they don't have the core stability to offset how much they're like jamming and loading those facet joints and stuff, is tough. That like those ones are really hard on the body.
Yeah. So from what you're saying and from my background too, I would say like, it's better to be a multi-sport athlete. So you're always kind of going in different directions. You're moving your body in different ways, right?
Yep.
And then obviously like the prep work too. Like you should be strengthening your core. You should be intentional about strength training and resistance training and recovery techniques and all that other stuff. So 100%. If you're going to be in sports or if you're going to be doing activities, you shouldn't be thinking just like a weekend warrior, like that, 35-year-old dad that thinks he can still snowboard or whatever and he hasn't strengthened trained or whatever. It's one of those things to really focus in on like preventative and being on top of what you want to do.
And that's where I think, from my perspective, I'm such a firm believer in like community involvement and like being like as a business owner and as a chiropractor, I want to be involved in our community. And especially with serving kids, we want to be involved in all different aspects of like kids' lives and kids' care that we can. So connecting like sports coaches and different places like that and athletic trainers and this and that, like reach out and connect with those other local professionals in the environment so that that you can have like workshops here and there, or like have people that you can like refer to if you're like, okay, we're doing some strength training, but this kid is still dealing with XYZ issue. Like have a trusted resource and a trusted professional that you can refer them to so that we can take care of these things now and not get to the point where it's like you're 45, 46 years old, or even you're 30 and you have a 5-year-old and you can't like run around and play ball with your 5-year-old. Like
oh my gosh.
no one wants that.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
Yeah. Even just talking about all of this physical stress and specifically when we're talking about the load that's on our kids, that also makes me think about mental and emotional stress. And you had mentioned that. So how does chiropractic help with emotional stress? Because obviously anxiety and depression are at a all-time high as well. So can you walk us through that?
Yep. So a big part of it is just how much our world and the pressure in our world is activating more of that fight or flight response. So that sympathetic nervous system doesn't just get activated by too much physical stress or too much chemical stress or technology. It can also be just overload of like toxins in our world, an overload of like the chemical side of things, and overload of like just the mental and emotional pressure that's put on kids of like, okay, you go to school from this time to this time, and then you leave and you have a 5 hour, like 2 to 3 hour sports practice. You're in the, like so you have practice from like 3 to 5 or 3 to 6. And then a lot of families, like then you're on the go, and then maybe you have to go to religion class after that. And so you like run through the drive-through in between, and then there's more chemical stress there. And then now you suddenly have to go home and still do homework at night and prepare for tests. And then like kids are changing and developing so much, and like having relationship changes with friends and trying to navigate different teachers with the beginning of the school year and that kind of stuff. And all those different stressors build up and they activate that fight or flight response in our nervous systems over and over and over again. And I think this is another good spot to bring in like technological stress, especially with like how early kids have phones these days, and just the social media side of things is a lot more, it's a lot different, and it's a lot more difficult for kids to navigate that balance these days than it ever has been before. And each time they encounter one of those stressors, if we don't have a good stress response to navigate and to bounce back from that, it just re-ramps up that fight or flight response. And sooner than later, that becomes our body's new normal. And then we're just stuck in fight or flight, like for over like repetitive days and weeks and months, like over and over again.
And we don't know how to rest.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. That's a big one that we talk about a lot in my office.
I feel like a lot of people are reaching for tissues right now. You're speaking right to me. Oh,
either that or they're in denial.
Yeah. So when we're talking,
Yep.
when we're talking about stress, so there's a couple different ways that you can tackle it. The best would be to decrease your stress. So whether it's
so easy, right? Yeah.
All 4 of these areas. So, checking your environmental toxins, which if you guys didn't listen to the episode with Dr. Kim Klimek, we do have an episode specifically on environmental toxins as well. But there's that piece of looking at your actual life and trying to decrease stressors. But what you're saying is with chiropractic, by your neurofunctional or neurological approach, this is also helping to decrease stress within the body. So my logical brain is thinking through questions on this.
Yep.
How does that actually help decrease your stress? So does someone come in, they see you, and then they walk out and they're like walking on clouds? You know?
I mean, sometimes people do say that.
How long does that walking on clouds
Yes.
last? So just help us understand a little bit more like from the science geek side of how this is helping to decrease stress when you know it's going to pop up again because you have sports practice later.
Yes.
You know?
Yep, exactly. So we're going to get into the sciencey side of it. And I hope this isn't too much of a deep dive, but generally people like this explanation. So what happens is that I like this little analogy, and I know there's not video to this, but I'm still going to do it. So I use my hand in a fist here, and my thumb is tucked on the inside, fingers in front, and then I get my arm to the side here. So my arm kind of represents the spinal cord, and the spinal cord is getting information from all different parts of our body. They're sending signals through the nerves into the spinal cord, and all that information goes up the spinal cord into the brain. If that information stimulates a part of our limbic system, and your limbic system is your emotional center, if it stimulates the parts of the limbic system that control negative emotions, so fear, grief, anxiety, overwhelm, anger, sadness, any of that kind of stuff, it actually then shuts off the part of the brain in the front that's called our prefrontal cortex. And that prefrontal cortex, like we talked about in the last episode, is what controls everything that makes us who we are. And it's the biggest part of the brain that controls all of our executive functions. So our rationale, decision-making, critical thinking skills, all that kind of stuff, and a big part of our emotional regulation. So when all those negative emotions are ramped up and there are multiple things that are causing more anxiety and more fear and more overwhelm in kids and just overstimulation, we lose that rational capability. And so what we talked about in the last episode is that with chiropractic adjustments, there's been research that has shown that when we adjust the spine and we send an impulse into the body, the biggest part of the brain that's stimulated and lights up there is the prefrontal cortex. So by stimulating and bringing that prefrontal cortex back online, we can help shut down those negative emotions so those aren't overriding that response. And then we can help bring back that calming parasympathetic state because we're shutting down that fight or flight response in our bodies.
And to clarify, it's not just about kids, it's about everybody.
Yeah,
like this
100%.
We're talking about adults here too.
Yep. Oh my gosh, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, exactly.
So does that mean that if you have high stress, which I know we can argue, everybody does, but let's just say there's some people who have a less stressful lifestyle and there's people who have a high stress lifestyle.
Or at least better managed, maybe.
Yeah. Fair.
But the people who are feeling more stressed out, does that mean they should, in the way that you're talking, they should see a chiropractor more often, or they could benefit by seeing one more often than someone who has a lower stress lifestyle?
Yep. I mean, I pretty much would agree. Obviously, everyone's situation is unique and different. And I think that there are chiropractic, we talk about is the foundation of this, because if your nervous system isn't communicating with your body properly and your nerves aren't able to communicate as effectively as they can with your body, and your nervous system can't do this regulation back and forth between fight or flight and rest and digest, your body can't do everything else as effectively as it's supposed to. So everything else that you then try to do isn't going to work like you necessarily want it to. So chiropractic is the foundation. And then there's so much more that we can do on top of that when we talk about movement, nutrition, breath work, meditation, all those kinds of things, journaling, therapy, all of that works even better when you have this proper foundation. So based on your question though, it definitely is times where people need more adjustments. I mean, we tell people, so when we are on lifestyle care in our office and people are coming once a week or every other week for adjustments, we tell them, like, if there are times of higher stress, if you're feeling sick, if like XYZ is going on, come in for a boost adjustment. So come in like twice for that week, or come in like once a week for a couple of weeks if you're on a biweekly care plan, so that we can help give your body a little bit more support as you're navigating these stressors. Because that's a big thing that we focus on, is kind of this balance of where can we keep an open conversation about trying to reduce some of these stressors in your life, whether it's the physical, chemical, mental, emotional, technological stress, but then also using chiropractic to help support your adaptability and resiliency so that you can adapt to those stressors with more ease.
What about like hormone stress in women, hormone changes?
Oh, yeah. I kind of mentioned this to you before, and I'm going to say it because I think a lot of women can relate to this.
Yeah.
So, and we are not TMI here at all. So
zero judgments.
So I whenever I get my period, just like usually the day before and the day of like my first day, my lower, like I can tell it's coming, right? And I know it's here, is my lower back just kind of feels more loose. It just feels like, there's a bit of pain there. Like maybe a heating pad might work. I might be able to get my husband to massage it a little bit, things like that. So there's something going on there, and I know it's because of hormones. Obviously, this is like a big time when my body is like releasing, right?
Yes, exactly.
So if you can touch on like how our cycles and our hormones kind of affect our spine and like all that stuff, that would be really helpful.
Yeah. So again, that comes back to chemical stress. And that was kind of something we didn't fully dive into. So obviously we can think about chemical stress from the external perspective. Anything that's going into or onto our body is either we're breathing it in, eating it, drinking it, or it's going on our skin and we're absorbing it, or there's the internal chemical stress that's happening. And it's good stressors. I mean, getting your period is good. We need to have a like healthy cycle that's consistent. But those changes that are happening within our bodies, so whether it's like cycle changes, whether it's pregnancy and hormone changes, or whether it's like puberty and hormone changes, or even just like digestive changes and stuff like that happening within our bodies. And again, it's sometimes those internal chemical stressors of like the serotonin signaling when we talk about like anxiety and that kind of stuff. Those are internal chemical stressors that are happening. And oftentimes they are good things like a cycle time and pregnancy and that kind of stuff. But it's still something that our body is figuring out. And it's still something that our nervous system is trying to adapt to while we're going through those different phases and transitions. So again, if we can reduce other load of stress, then our body has more capability and more capacity to handle those stressors too. Yeah. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it's one of those things too, like if I was in excruciating pain, obviously being in pain is not normal. It shouldn't be normal. So if you're in pain, or if you're hurting, or, if you have painful periods or really heavy periods, those things should be looked at because like you said, a lot of it could be A lot of it could be hormones.
Yeah.
Why are your hormones like making your body react this way? Chemical reactions, environmental toxins. There's so many different things.
Totally.
So that's why chiropractic can be really helpful. With
And a really good
that.
base foundation to look at some of that stuff. Yeah, for sure.
So I feel like we need to end this episode with Rachel's hot tips for decreasing stress. So we talked about how chiropractic can help, but also like actually decreasing stress within your life. What are your hot tips for us?
So obviously I will always say that chiropractic is a foundation, and getting adjusted to keep your nervous system as adaptable as possible is number one. But then lifestyle factors and just general lifestyle factors, I think, are a big one. I am a firm believer in the whole phrase of like, you can't out supplement like a poor diet. Is like such a big one. That's a good example. You can't red light therapy your way out of like using Bath and Body Works, shampoo, conditioner, candles, yada, yada, all the things. So really looking at your lifestyle factors, I think is a really good baseline there. Focusing on like whole food diet, trying to reduce all those extra like chemicals, pesticides, that kind of stuff, is a big one. And then sleep. The three biggest things I talk about when we go through a new patient exam at my office. We talk about everything that's going on, current stuff, past stuff, whatever. And then the three things I like to end on are stress, sleep, and nutrition, because those are the three baselines of how our body is adapting on a consistent basis. So especially as women, we need closer to 9 hours of sleep. So, and the earlier we can get to sleep in the night, the better it is for our bodies, because when you go to sleep at like the hours that you get before midnight, you're more likely to get deep sleep, which is more of our restorative sleep. Closer, that sleep more in the morning is more of our like REM sleep and light sleep. And all variations of sleep is important. And generally we'll all have more light sleep than we'll have REM and deep sleep. But if you don't have enough REM and deep sleep, then your body actually doesn't like recover and rejuvenate the energy that expended the day before. So you go into that new day with like less capacity and less capability, which obviously is more stress on your body. Then you have less capacity to deal with the stress that you're going to encounter.
I just love everything that you have to say, Rachel. Like you're just so full of energy, and you're just like a wealth of knowledge, and you just love serving people.
Yes,
and if you guys have not yet been on Rachel's social media pages, she shares a ton of stuff, not only of her own content, but she also finds things that are out there to help support your life. So make sure that you're following her on social media. What are your Instagram and Facebook handles?
So our Facebook page is just Flow Family Chiropractic, and our Instagram handle is Flow Family Chiro, with an underscore. So, and I mean, that's a big part of our just philosophy in general, is that we want people to feel like educated and informed and supported and empowered. And that starts with information, and it starts with like actually like getting information to the people. So, and we don't know everything, and I don't know everything. So we find resources.
Learning.
Exactly.
Yep.
We're lifelong learners. And so we're always trying to find resources, to share with people as well. So, and I do have to give one shout out. When I hired my first employee, that was one of the first things that I worked on, like offloading. So I do still have a big involvement in like our content and like proofing and scheduling and this and that. But I have one of our employees, Ellie, does all of our like sharing and stories and Facebook stuff. And she is just incredible and miraculous and is such an amazing wealth of knowledge herself. And I learn so much from her on a constant basis. So she does a ton of that sharing and stuff too, and she just does an awesome job with it.
And that would be like a big shout out to any business owners listening to this too, is if you can hire somebody or have somebody to help you with social media 100%. And those things, you can concentrate on doing what you do best.
Yes. Yep. Totally.
Yeah. That's to say, because we have the same thing, and
finding the right person is hard though.
It is.
I'm very, very, very grateful and very, very blessed that Ellie, like that this has worked out so well for us, because finding the right person to fit that role and to like emulate your voice and to have that consistency across the board is so important.
Taking stress off your plate.
Exactly. Yes, ma'am. Exactly. 100%. And asking for help. Like as women, we don't want to do that. So it's okay to be like, nope, I am going to release this one and ask for help on it.
Yeah. We knew that we would be able to do an entire episode on just stress and how chiropractic relates to it. But this was amazing. Like talking about all those different areas.
So educational.
And this was great.
I love that.
Stay tuned, you guys. We have 2 more episodes with Rachel coming. We're going to be diving into kids specifically, since that is one of her fortes, as well as perinatal care in the 4th episode. So stay tuned. We have more coming.
Cool.
If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time, and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.